Welcome to the deep dive. So you know Bitcoin, right? The original digital asset. But today, we're going really granular, like super small. We're looking at the tiniest possible piece of Bitcoin, the Satoshi. And we're asking this, well, kind of wild question. What if not all sats are created equal? What if some are basically priceless digital artifacts? That's what we're digging into today. Our mission is to get you up to speed, fast, on this whole world of rare Satoshis, or rare sats. It's this really fascinating new layer of collecting, scarcity built right onto the Bitcoin blockchain. We need to figure out how people classify them, value them, and even hunt for them.
Exactly. And none of this would even be possible without something called the Ordinals protocol. Our sources really dig into how this protocol basically gives every single Satoshi, all 2.1 quadrillion of them, a unique serial number in the
So
world.
every single tiny fraction, that's a lot.
It's immense, but it's systematic. And before Ordinals, you're right, a sat was just a sat, completely fungible. One was the same as any other, just a
Yeah.
unit of account. But Ordinals, it's like it gives each sat its own identity, because once it has that unique number, you can attach data to it, inscribe it, they call it. This essentially turns it into a unique digital thing, sort of like Bitcoin's own native version of an NFT. But the uniqueness isn't just the inscription, it's often the history of the sat itself.
Okay, let's unpack that. If there are trillions, literally quadrillions of these things already out there,
Yeah.
how do you even start saying one is rare? It feels like finding, I don't know, the rarest grain of sand.
Yeah, it seems daunting, but there's actually a system. It's called the Rodarmor Rarity Index, named after Casey Rodarmor, who came up with ordinal theory. And this index, it doesn't care about the dollar value right now. Rarity is purely based on when that specific Satoshi was mined, specifically relative to big predictable events on the Bitcoin network itself.
Okay. So it's tied to the blockchain's history, these specific moments in time, not just someone deciding, oh, I like this one. It's mathematical.
Precisely. Verifiable historical moments. So let's start at the bottom. You have common sats. These are basically all the Satoshis that are not the very first one mined in a new block. They make up something like 99% of the total supply, the vast, vast majority. No special timing, according to the index.
Okay, the everyday sats. Makes sense. So moving up from that baseline.
Then you get uncommon sats. An uncommon sat is the very first Satoshi mined in each new block.
And new blocks happen pretty often, right? Like every 10 minutes.
Roughly, yeah. The network targets 10 minutes. So these uncommon sats mark the start of each new batch of confirmed transactions. They're relatively frequent, historically speaking.
And still rarer than common ones. How many are there total?
The total theoretical supply is capped at 6,929,999 uncommon sats, ever.
6.9 million. Okay, that sounds like a lot, but compared to 2.1 quadrillion.
Exactly. It's a tiny, tiny fraction, less than 0.0003%. So already we're seeing significant scarcity just based on being the first in a block.
Right. Now we get to the category that this whole thing is named after. Rare sats. If uncommon is the first in a block, what makes a sat rare? What's the event?
Okay, so this ties into how Bitcoin manages its mining difficulty. The network needs to make sure blocks keep coming out roughly every 10 minutes, even as imputing power changes. So it adjusts the difficulty. And this adjustment happens very precisely every 2016 blocks. That works out to about every 2 weeks.
Gotcha. So like a network recalibration every couple of weeks. And the rare sat is?
The rare sat is the first Satoshi mine in the first block after that difficulty adjustment happens.
Okay, wow. So not just any block, but the specific block kicking off a new difficulty period. That sounds much less frequent.
Way less frequent, only about 26 times a year, roughly. Because of that, the total supply of rare sats is incredibly limited. We're talking only 3,437 rare sats ever.
Hold on. We went from 2.1 quadrillion common down to about 7 million uncommon.
Yeah.
And at just over 3,000 rare sats. That's a massive drop-off.
Huge drop. It really shows you how the index pinpoints these specific, infrequent moments. It's mathematically defined scarcity. And it gets even rarer. Next up are the epic sats.
Epic. Okay, this has to be the halving, right? The big 4-year
You
event.
got it. The Bitcoin halving, when the reward for miners gets cut in half, happens about every 4 years, or more precisely, every 210,000 blocks. An epic sat is the first Satoshi mined in the very first block of a new halving epoch.
And we've only had a few halvings so far in Bitcoin's history. 4, I think.
That's right, which means there are currently only about 32 epic sats in existence.
32. Just 32 sats from those key moments. That's incredible. It takes years just for the chance for one to be mined. They really are like historical markers for the network's
Yes.
monetary schedule.
Absolutely. And the index goes even further into categories that haven't even happened yet or only happened once, like legendary sats. These are defined as the first sat mined after both a halving and a difficulty adjustment happen at the same time. A major cycle conjunction.
Wow. How often does that occur?
Only about every 6 halvings. So roughly every 24 years. And interestingly, the sources point out the first ever legendary sat event isn't expected until around 2032.
So people are already thinking about maybe hunting for an asset that doesn't even exist yet.
Yeah.
That's forward thinking.
It adds this whole layer of future anticipation, yeah. And then you have the absolute pinnacle, the one of one, the mythic sat.
The very first one.
The very first Satoshi ever mined.
Right.
In the Genesis block, January 2009, by Satoshi Nakamoto themselves, there's only one. It's the origin point.
Okay. That Rodarmor Index is a really clear mathematical hierarchy.
Right.
But you mentioned history playing a role, too. This is where it gets even more interesting for me.
Right.
You get things like exotic sats. What's that about?
Right, so exotics are fascinating because they step outside that strict Rodarmor timing.
Yeah.
They rely more on social consensus within the ordinals community. These are sats recognized as special because of their connection to specific historical events, famous transactions, or maybe even interesting numerical patterns that aren't captured by the index. It's where human history meets the blockchain.
But doesn't that make it a bit subjective? Like, how does everyone agree which historical event makes a sat exotic? Is it just, hype?
That's a fair question. It's definitely driven by community agreement and storytelling, but crucially, those stories are almost always tied to verifiable on-chain history. People trace the transaction history, the UTXOs, back through time. If a specific Satoshi can be definitively linked to a known significant event, the community tends to recognize it. So it's consensus, but anchored in blockchain facts.
Okay, that makes sense. It needs that proof.
Mhm.
So give us some examples. The most famous one has to be the pizza sats, right?
Oh, absolutely. Everyone knows the story. May 22nd, 2010. 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 Papa John's pizzas, widely seen as the first real-world commercial Bitcoin transaction. The specific Satoshis used in that payment are the pizza sats. Their value comes entirely from that historical moment, Bitcoin proving it could be actual money, irrespective of where they fall on the Rodarmor scale.
Amazing. And there are others linked to the early pioneers, too.
Yes, definitely. You have Nakamoto sats, any sat proven to have been mined by Satoshi. Extremely rare and hard to verify for sure, but incredibly sought after. And then there are Block 78 sats. These come from the first block mined by Hal Finney, the legendary cryptographer who received the first ever Bitcoin transaction from Satoshi. It's like owning a piece of that foundational interaction.
Wow. And you mentioned the mythic sat earlier, the very first one. Doesn't the block it came from, the Genesis block, have that famous message embedded in it?
It does, and that's key to its historical weight. The raw data of the Genesis block includes the text, the Times 03 Jan 2009 Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. That message right there in the first block, it sort of sets the stage for why Bitcoin was created. It gives that mythic sat this powerful context, like an inscription on a cornerstone.
Okay, so we have these two tracks. The super rare, based on math and timing, the Rodarmor Index, and then the rare based on history and story, the exotics.
Yeah.
Why the frenzy? Why are people spending serious time and, serious money on this? What's the connection between this scarcity and, actual value?
Fundamentally, the scarcity drives the value, especially for collectors. It's this mix of cutting-edge tech, finance, history, and just that basic human desire to own something unique and limited. And we know the value is real. It's not just theoretical. We saw that auction back in April 2024.
Right, the Epic Sat auction. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so one of those Epic Sats, remember, only about 32 exist when up for auction. The bidding started at 1 Bitcoin, which was already significant, maybe around $63,000 then. But it ended up selling for 33.3 BTC. At the time, that was roughly $2.1 million.
Wow. $2.1 million for one Satoshi. What did that sale signal? Was it seen as just a crazy outlier, or did it validate this market?
I think it absolutely validated the market, especially for the highest tiers of the Rodarmor Index. It showed that, yes, people are willing to pay a massive premium for these mathematically proven historical artifacts. The buyer was private, but it wasn't just seen as speculation. It was proof that these things are viewed as legitimate digital collectibles with serious value. It really put rare sats on the map for a lot of people.
Incredible. Okay, so if someone listening is thinking, maybe I have one, how does sat hunting actually work? Can you just, peek into your Bitcoin wallet and see?
You actually can, yeah, but you need the right kind of tools. It starts with looking at your wallet's UTXOs, the unspent transaction outputs. Think of UTXOs as like specific chunks of Bitcoin you've received. When you send Bitcoin, your wallet picks which UTXOs to use.
And the danger is your normal wallet doesn't know if one of those UTXOs contains a super rare sat. It might just spend it.
Exactly. That's the big risk. A standard Bitcoin wallet just sees sats as sats. It might grab a UTXO holding that $2 million epic sat to pay for your, I don't know, $5 coffee without realizing its historical value. Poof, gone.
Oh, man. So people are actually like shuffling Bitcoin around, hoping to catch a rare one in the change.
Some are, yes. It's called coin sorting sometimes. Moving small amounts between wallets or through exchanges, checking the UTXOs you get back, hoping one contains an uncommon or maybe even something rarer. It's often tedious, can be costly with transaction fees, and frankly, the odds aren't great. But the potential reward keeps people trying.
But thankfully, there are better ways now, right? Specialized wallets.
Absolutely crucial. Using an Ordinals aware wallet like, say, Xverse, or using discovery tools like Magisat or Magic Eden, these are designed to understand SAT rarity. They'll scan your Bitcoin addresses and actually show you if you hold any known rare or exotic SATs based on the Rodarmor Index or community lists. And critically, they usually have features to lock those specific SATs to prevent you from accidentally spending them in a normal transaction. It's essential protection for collectors.
It's really amazing when you step back. This whole ordinals thing has fundamentally shifted how we can view Bitcoin. It's not just money anymore. It's potentially a collection of unique historical artifacts. Every tiny piece has an identity now.
It really highlights this intersection of technology, history, and that human drive to collect scarce things. The tech provides the proof, the verifiable identity, but the value comes from us assigning meaning to that history and scarcity.
So for you listening, what does this all mean? Well, it means that Bitcoin you might be holding, which seems perfectly interchangeable, actually have this hidden layer of potential non-fungibility, of history. You could, theoretically, be holding a sat worth far more than its face value just because of when it was mined or what transaction it was part of.
And maybe this leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Most crypto value is often tied to promises of future utility. But rare sats, particularly exotics, their value is rooted purely in past, immutable history and the stories we tell about it. So looking ahead, say 20 years, what will be considered more valuable? The sats defined by pure math, like the upcoming legendary sats, or the ones defined by human stories and consensus, like the pizza sats. That tension between code and culture. That's maybe the next frontier in figuring out what rare truly means here.